This will be the last tier of this video, at least for a little bit. We're doing supports today. I did damage, flanks, and front lines already, of course. I'll put them in the description in case you missed them. And just to clarify one last time, it's more of a personal tier list than a meta tier list, but it does play into it. It's just kind of a secondary part. Don't really need to explain more than that. I feel like you get the idea at this point, and yeah, I'll just cut myself off and we'll jump straight into it. Corvus, he's going straight into B. I like half his kit, don't like the other half. I feel like build-wise, he's got a decent amount of stuff going on, but the weapon always has felt a little bit rough. It's not terrible, it's just kind of B. The heal I like, the mark I like, but the movement specifically not really my thing, and the ultimate is just also kind of whatever, and the playstyle for him is fine, just not my favourite, so he's in the middle. Moving on to Furia, starting off strong, she's going in to S tier, which I feel like you kind of expect. I like pretty much the entirety of her kit. She's got the variety when it comes to builds and playstyles, where you want the beam heal, the more standard sort of Furia, or damage, the weapon, the right click, the beam, and the F with the ultimate. The F, not as much, but generally I like her entire kit pretty much. She just does the things that she's trying to do pretty much perfectly, whether it's the beam heal, the damage, or the more like normal basic Furia. She just kind of nails it. Then we have Grohk, who I wouldn't go as far as to say is the opposite, but definitely has grown off for me and feels like kind of similar to what Furia is doing, but just scaled down a bit. If you had to give me Grohk or Furia, I'd probably pick Furia like 80% of the time, but I do like him. I think the thing he's doing is pretty cool, especially with like the damage and the beam like spam and the totem spam is also interesting. Beam heal is just kind of whatever for me, but I wouldn't say I dislike any part of Grohk. You know, really, I feel like a lot of what he's doing is pretty fun and is sort of similar to stuff in other characters that I like quite a lot. Just that the niche that he's in and the sort of spot that Grohk has taken up and been left with is a little bit weird for me, even though I'm generally positive about him. He's ending up in a bit of a lower spot like around a C. Comparatively, has to be a little bit lower than some of the other options just because of how much I grab him. When I do grab him, it's just how I sort of feel and, you know, all that sort of stuff bundled into one. Grohk just ends up a little bit lower. Hopefully I do some stuff with him in the future though, because he does have the space and he's been higher before for sure. Next up we've got Grover, who's actually going to go right next to Grohk, but with a really, really big asterisk because the changes they're giving to him in the next update, and if they lean into that more, he could go way, way higher. He has got a ton of potential, I think, if they push him into the role of like a buffer, like a aura sort of character, because we don't really have that, and Grohk would fit that sort of perfectly, because kind of what he did just with heals. There's so many buffs in Paladins that if they really dedicated him to being that sort of character, they could make all of his talents and a bunch of his cards just different directions to push his sort of buffs in. I don't know if they really want to do that. It's just sort of me theorizing. It would kind of ruin what he is as a character at the moment, which is decent and definitely not bad. I know a lot of people like Grover. Just for me, the space he's kind of taken up is a little bit lower than some of the others, which is why he's going into the higher end of C. Yeah, I just feel like he's got a ton of potential and could really, really climb up there, but at the moment he's definitely not in a bad spot. Again, like high C, low B, somewhere around there. I really like the reset and the damage reduction. Some of the cards are really, really strong, but he's just not really had a massive spike for me. So he's always kind of been around that sort of area. Then next up, we've got IO. I really wanted to put into S, but I think she's going to end up in high A, mainly because I don't really love the weapon and the movement. I really like the Luna thing. She's pretty much a perfect example of like a standard-ish sort of healer, but with a unique twist with like Luna. I really do like her a ton. Previously, I probably would have put her somewhere around a C, but she's going on me so much to the point that she's at like the top of A, maybe even an S, but there's just those few things that stop me from putting her up there that yeah, she's at the top of A, I reckon. Build-wise, it's also lacking a tiny bit. Not in strength, I think the builds are really quite strong with like the Moonlight stuff and the speed, and you're basically just doing more of what you're already doing, which is why I wouldn't really put it into S tier. It's not massively changing what you're doing with IO, regardless of what direction you try and push it in, if that makes sense, but she's got enough stuff that she really deserves that spot. I feel like I've talked a lot about IO recently. Next up, Jenos, the Mark King. I'm going to put him into S tier. I could totally see that meta-wise, especially for the higher end stuff. That might not be the case, but just personally, I kind of like Jenos. I definitely didn't used to. I don't really know when it changed or what happened, but he has been kind of killing it for a while. Binary star, if you're trying to do like damage stuff, I wouldn't say I really love, but CC Jenos, specifically heal sort of Mark Jenos, is the star of the show for me. He's just super good at what he does. In most matches, if you play him even semi-decently, you're going to perform really, really well if that's healing or just annoying the enemy team. Their movement is also something that's really underutilized. I'm not particularly great with it, but I've gone against enough good Genoses that trying to actually deal with him when he's positioning himself well and using the movement well is just a massive pain, and it's not really taken advantage of enough. That was a weird way to explain what I mean, but I like Jenos a lot. I think he deserves the S, but I could see how you could definitely argue against that. He just does what he's trying to do and kind of nails it. Next up, Lilith, a bit of a tough one, and that's not just me saying her name, which always gives me trouble, but I don't really like the weapon, don't really like the movement. I do like the heal and the ultimate and the builds and her character design, just overall really, really cool stuff. Just never really clicked for me personally, even though I see for a lot of people she could be way higher. She's definitely fallen off a bit recently from some of the changes I've noticed, but they're doing some stuff also in the next update that might fix it a bit. But yeah, the movement and the damage never really worked for me, and that is pretty much half her kit. I can sort of deal with, you know, not doing damage and just being super focused on heals as a support, but her movement is super important on pretty much every character for me personally, and it just never really worked properly for me. Even though it isn't a bad movement ability, you can buff it, and again, Lilith has the potential for sure for a lot of people to be way higher, I have to put her in C. Definitely, I think, more of a me thing on this one than some of the others. But next up, Damber, a character who, if you've been following the channel previously, I definitely would have put into S tier. These days, he's sitting around an A, which is kind of weird because he's pretty much the same. If anything, he might even be better than when I previously really loved him. Maybe I overplayed him. I'm not sure, but pretty weird for me to say though, because I do pretty much like his entire kit. I don't really like the Cobra spit specifically, but with the reload, it kind of saves it. The heal, the gourd, and the slither with the ultimate, all really good. He's got the variety if you want damage, healing, or gourd healing. I feel like I should put him into S, but he's just not there these days for me. Again, I'm not really sure why, but he's going really high A, probably the top of A. Next up though, Moji, she's going right at the bottom of the tier list, which I feel kind of bad about because I do like the idea of her being a support. I think the change was generally kind of a good idea. They didn't really recover the damage setup. Still, it's in a bit of a weird spot, but full heal Moji was really good for a while, and I probably would have put it around like a B personally, but since then, and where she is at the moment, and seemingly will be for a while, she's kind of lower. Definitely has the space and the potential to go way higher. I can't see her ever being in an S for me personally, just because of the way she inherently works, but if they change enough stuff and they do some, cool things in the future, she could go up to like an A or a really high B. Yeah. I like her being a support. She just isn't there just yet, so she's going to go right at the bottom, but the potential is there, just like with Grohk, to go way up, but we'll have to see what happens in the future. And also, because I think somebody asked me, I said I'd do it in this video, Flank Moji probably would have been around a C as well. She's never really been a favourite, even when she's been super strong. She's always been a little bit on the lower end of the tier list, just because of inherently the type of character that she is, but yeah, that's just me. I could totally see her being way high for other people. Next up, Pip, another personal one. He's actually going right next to Damber, but for different reasons. Damber's being carried by the healer setup. I do like the damage one as well, but I'd probably put it like high B. Pip, on the other hand, damage I actually put in like S or low A, or high A, I mean, and then Current Medic would be high A, B, Mega Potion would be C. So all kind of combined, he's ending up just below Damber by a tiny bit. But I really do like him. Mainly the damage setup though. I don't see it enough. It is a ton of fun. Go out and play some damage Pip, but the healer setup is also solid enough that he's definitely not going to go below an A. It's just kind of weird that he's right next to Damber while they have kind of inverted stats a little bit. Damber's is a little bit higher just in general because a Mega Potion for me just really doesn't do it. But next up, Ray, another bit of a weird one. She's going into B tier to fill it out a little bit, but they're actually going to be the only two in there. I do like a lot of her kit. Previously I might have put her a little bit higher, but when I actually sat and compared her, she just doesn't have enough to push her up above like a B+. I like the kit just generally. Envelop I think is really cool. Never really liked the damage setup, which people do quite well with these days, but it's never really been my thing. But support and hybrid Ray, for me specifically, I do really like quite a lot and consider to be quite solid. So she's ending up somewhere like what I said with some other champions in different videos, like 1.7 out of 3. And that's just not enough to push her above a B+. Even though build-wise and what she's doing, I think to be really quite cool, it isn't enough for me to put her higher. Even though I do really like her and consider a character that I have like just generally quite positive opinions on, I just, yeah, don't have enough to put her up. Next up, Seris. She's going right next to Jenos in S tier though, which is another sort of character that I could see people totally disagreeing with. Both of them, I think meta-wise, just like with what I said with Jenos, fall off quite a bit in the higher end stuff. Jenos a little bit less so than Seris, who can be a little bit more tough, but I like her so much for casual stuff, and just generally, she's one of the characters that I tend to go for and gravitate towards, especially when just turn my brain off. She has pretty decent heals, pretty decent damage, pretty decent CC with like a super free escape and an ultimate that's all kind of like bundled into one as a support sort of damage heal hybrid, whatever you want to call it, character. She's got the variety in there too. Soul Collector is probably a favorite, but the other two aren't bad even though they are kind of newer. She has a pretty damn good amount of variety when it comes to the cards. I only have like 2 versions of the build, but there's a lot of other stuff I see and you can definitely run even if it isn't like 100% optimal. And most of these do actually see play, which is quite impressive when you consider the type of character she is. Reducing the cast time and the speed on the marks are quite unique cards I like quite a bit. I talked about those before, and yeah, I've realized as I made this tier list that I tend to prefer characters that you can play and perform a little bit better with your brain off, which probably means I should play Paladins more with my brain on, and the tiers will probably look quite a bit different, but that's got to at least sort of explain why Seris and Damber sort of switched a little bit, same with Jenos, but it's also a little bit different depending on the higher rank stuff. I feel like my tier list changes a little bit if I'm in a triad scenario. The tier list definitely does vary depending on the type of match I'm in, and I think the A and the S tiers specifically move around quite a bit depending on, you know, the sort of games I'm in most of the time, and lately it seems to be Seris and Jenos type of matches and not so much IO and I like Damber type of games, which I would consider kind of also Ying's matches, who's the last one on the tier list. She's also going into S tier. Previously though, a little while ago, she probably would have ended up in somewhere around a B, but after all the changes, just my taste is kind of changing a bit, she's actually ending up at the bottom of S, mainly for the movement. I don't love her movement. I can never really get it to work exactly how I want to. It feels a little bit unpredictable. She performs really well and has all the markings of an S tier character. There's just a few things that put her a little bit towards the lower end of that, but overall she has so many different ways you can play her that are all quite successful for different reasons, different matches and different types of players. The build variety is there that combos with the talents and stuff. You've got damage, focusing lens sort of Ying, full healer Ying with like the right click healing, resonance, decoy explosion, like a different sort of thing. They all kind of work. I don't really have any complaints. I think Ying is in a really good spot after the changes they gave her. For a while she really wasn't doing that well, which is why, like I said, she would have gone into B before, but with the stuff they changed and the way that she plays these days, she's definitely up there for me. and most people I think, because I see her a ton. I will say Ying and Furia are a little bit better representations of S tier characters because they have the more variety, damage, healer, sort of off setups and stuff compared to Jenos and Seris that are also there, which are a little bit safer, a little bit more, I guess, heal botty type of characters. It's not really a good word for it, but hopefully you get what I mean. Even though they're all in S tier and Ying is at the bottom of it, I feel like Ying and Furia specifically are really, really standouts at the moment and have been for a while with what they're sort of doing. Pip also kind of, it's just a little bit less of my preference. Pip is also doing a very similar thing with heal or damage, but just differently. A lot of the healers actually, when you think about it, have a really, really good way to show you damage or healing or kind of both mixed together. Just Ying and Furia come to my mind a little bit more for my preferences and stuff, but a lot of others can do a very similar thing and a lot of unique stuff. I really hope Grohk ends up being like the aura buffer. That'd be cool. I would hate to have a character that's like an auto include in every team, but I'd love to have a character like that in Paladins. But enough yapping, that is where I'm going to cut it. This one's probably a little bit shorter because I think I went through it a little bit fast. I got a little bit more used to doing it as I went through the tiers again. That will be put in the description. I'll have more sort of different one-off style videos in the future. I've got a few already on a list written down, but if you want to see me do anything specifically aside from like tips for characters and stuff, let me know down in the comments, and obviously the regular sort of videos, which I'll do when the update comes out. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. Leave a like if you've enjoyed. Let me know what you want to see me next. Like I just said, I'll see you guys all very, very soon. I appreciate staying the way till the end. And as always, stay frosty.